Hello, good to see everybody. We're just going to wait a few minutes while people get on. Give everybody a chance to do that.
Hello, hello.
Hello. So, you guys, Kristen, have you been predominantly at home then?
I went into the office today and I'll probably go in tomorrow morning, but I'm pretty much home.
Yeah.
Right here.
Nice. I went in once this week.
Yeah.
Into the actual office. But I'm almost getting more done at home anyway.
I know. I feel like in the office, there's always so much that I'm like, oh yeah, I need to do this. Oh, I need to do this. Oh yeah, I should do this.
Yep.
Here, I just bring home like what I need to do and then I just do it.
Yeah, I have more distractions at home, but I don't know. At the same time, I've been more like focused, like I'm gonna get this done at home.
Yeah.
So have you guys been able to get out and enjoy the weather at all? Go on any walks?
Yeah, we've been doing like walks with the baby and trying to jog some because it's so nice out.
Yeah, it is so nice.
It's supposed to be cold tomorrow though.
I know. And then
do you usually go to a park or do you just go out on the road or what do you do?
We just go in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Where do you guys live?
We live at like 100th and Antioch.
Oh, okay.
So just like a little neighborhood behind Legacy Church.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's cute and fun.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun because there's like people walking their dogs and kids out a whole lot more. So Jace is like, like looking at everything.
Yeah.
And then she wants to stop any dog we see. She like wants to stop and connect with it, and she can't. So I'm like, you have to socially distance from the doggy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
She's at a fun age and stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she is. She's almost walking. She's trying really hard.
Wow. It was funny. Asa was like, he crawled early and then he was trying to get up. Like he could have started pretty early. And then he was just like, nah, I'm getting to where I want to. And he just kind of got stubborn and didn't even end up actually walking till, I don't know, like 18. I don't know how, it probably wasn't 18 months.
He was just like, I'm good. I'm really fast on my knees. And so.
He's like, I can roll around. I can crawl. I don't need to walk.
Yep. Yeah, I love.
I don't know. She's so stubborn that I think she'll want to. She like every time she like sees her cousins doing stuff, she freaks out and like wants to do it too. So.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and get started. And we'll do an introduction here in just a little bit. But Kristen is going to start us off with. I know she had a devotional thought today, so I'll let her start it.
Yeah, so one of my favorite seasons is happening right now, and it's not necessarily just the season of spring, but it's always just the very first part of spring when there's still dead things, but things are starting to come to life. And so everything's blooming, and this season always makes me reflect on, especially right now, Matthew 6:25 through 34, just the do not be anxious section. And specifically in Matthew 28-30, and why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all of his glory was not arrayed like any of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, you O of little faith? And so I was just, when you know, being outside, so important right now, but it's just like being able to reflect on like currently nature is not worried, nature is not afraid, you know, nature is not hiding, and so it's in full bloom, you know. And I think just reflecting on, I don't think it's any, you know, it's, I think we're in this season, in this blooming, God knew all along, obviously, and so just being able to even drive to work and there's these fields and these purple flowers are just in patches everywhere. And so it's just like, okay, you know, life is happening. Life is still going on when we feel worried or afraid or scared. And so I just think was reflecting on nature is telling us a different story about this season, and we're inside of our own brains and inside of our own homes, I think that God's just inviting us to remember that he's in charge of everything and in charge of the season that we're in.
Mhm. Yeah, and my dandelions are in full bloom too, so
yeah,
I got to get out and take care of those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks, Kristen. I appreciate that. Today we got with us Kate Hamlin. She has been a member of Southwoods for since you were, I don't know, when did your family come to Southwoods?
I was 13, I think, when we started going to Southwoods.
Okay.
And I'm the oldest of 5 of us, and the youngest is 2 years younger than me, so she was 30, so 21 years ago. Yeah.
Yep. Well, that's been a while. So,
no, right?
Yeah. So you've grown up with Southwoods for a lot of your life. For those of you that might not know, Bob Priest is her daddy, and but
Kristen Gillenwater is my sister.
That's right.
All those rambunctious kids belong to us as well.
Yeah. So you've been going to Southwoods for a while. How did you get into counseling as a career?
Well, it's kind of a sad story. I don't know. I won't go super into detail about it. I was in college at K-State, and I thought I wanted to be a doctor. We'd done lots of mission trips as a kid with Southwoods, and so I always saw a lot of need for medical missions whenever we were in Mexico or anywhere like that. So I went to college thinking that that's what I wanted to do, and then I changed my major a bunch of times because I couldn't really figure out what I liked. And then right towards the end of, well, that's not true. I guess it was my sophomore year in college, my brother got pretty close to committing suicide. He had to be hospitalized. And that was really scary for me because we as a family just hadn't ever dealt with anything like that before. And so I think I came home, it had to have been over Christmas or something, and we did a family therapy session, and I didn't get a lot out of it, but I was well, maybe this is for my brother, that's great. And I asked him later, and he's no, okay, I'm just faking it to all these people until I can make this go away. And that scared the heck out of me because I was well, then you're not going to get better. And so I was there's got to be people that can talk to teenagers. And around that same time, I was taking a counseling class at K-State, and I was oh my gosh, this is my jam. So those things I feel kind of worked together to help God kind of push me into a certain path. And then I went to grad school at Mid-America. I think I took 10 months off after I graduated from K-State, and then went to grad school the following summer. So that's how I got into it. It's kind of sad, but I feel God was kind of guiding our family towards that. My brother's fine and healthy now.
Mm-hmm.
Good. And little known fact, one thing you did while you were at K-State, what were you were on a team?
Oh, I was on the rowing team. Yeah.
Yep.
Ooh.
Yeah, see, Kristen didn't know that.
Cool.
Yes, I have pictures if you guys want them. It's a beautiful thing.
Sure, that's awesome. So what demographic would you say you work with right now? What's kind of your sweet spot? Who do you talk, kind of hang out with and talk with? And
Sure. So I see anywhere from the youngest I see is 5 or 6, but I see all the way up into adulthood. But I'm mostly focused on teenagers and their families, just because I think personally that was where I felt the reason I got into counseling. And then once I got into it and started doing family counseling, I really enjoy it. And at this point, I'm still kind of cool, so teenagers like to talk to me to some degree. I don't know 10 years from now if I'll have to change who I see, if I'll be less cool then, but right now,
tattoo is so cool
for me. Yeah, need more tattoos.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of I mostly see teens and their families now, but I see lots of ages.
Cool. Last question, and then you, Kate's going to have kind of an extended time to just talk about some things that she's prepared. But who would you say is your role model, either in your career or life, either one you want to talk about?
This one is so hard because career-wise, for a counselor, there's people who do the theoretical side of counseling that are kind of well known. That was never really what drew me to counseling, because I think the theory is helpful, but I always really liked the personal touch that counseling led. So I think a lot of the counselors just that I grew up in my internship and like the early years as a counselor, like watching them counsel and like learning from them. So like right now I actually work with my supervisor from when I was an intern. She's
Oh, cool.
kind of like my boss lady. We're all contracted together. So like watching her, her name is Elizabeth Miranda, like watching her counsel, and she was kind of a role model for me. And then like Carrie Job or Amanda Lindsay Cook, like any of those worship leaders, they're always, you know, right up my alley too. So
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thanks, Kate. We're excited to hear from you. Thank you for spending some time with us. And you can just kind of have some time.
Yeah.
Yes, I have some notes here. So I'm kind of just going to give you guys like a rundown of some coping for anxiety and stress during this time for COVID-19, especially for like kids and teenagers. I'm going to kind of run through. I know Cody said we have the option to like chat. So if you have questions that I don't answer, maybe try to chat those to Cody and he can ask those at the end. I'm hoping that I'll touch on a lot of stuff that's helpful for people during this time. But again, if there's anything that is a specific need that I don't address, or you guys can always email me later with questions as well. But so I'm just going to do like a rundown of some coping skills and some interesting facts about anxiety, how you guys can handle it, and then I will send it back to Cody and Kristen. So the first thing I really want to touch on is making sure that you provide age-appropriate material for your children during this time, trying to do some age-appropriate honesty. A lot of people, especially with the really small kids, like early elementary and even preschool, like kids can tell that something is going on. And so you just want to have some age-appropriate honesty. So don't pretend like nothing's going wrong. If you do, kids will hear like the whispers, they'll like catch stuff on the news and they'll know something's wrong, and that will actually increase their anxiety. So just making sure that you say, so for like most of my little kids, we're just saying, hey, like there's sickness going on in the world right now. We want to make sure that everybody's safe. So we're just going to stay home until this passes. We don't want you to get sick. We don't want mommy to get sick. We don't want daddy to get sick. So just make sure that you're being age appropriate. With teenagers, again, like they're going to get a lot more information than most of your kids are, but you also need to make sure that they're not getting most of their information from like Facebook or Snapchat or Instagram or Visco or whatever it is, whatever medium they're using, TikTok, because a lot of times that is not going to be helpful information. Sometimes it's not true. So just, I know it's hard to know how much news to watch and like who to trust, but just trying to like have some wisdom about it, check in with teenagers, and just see what they know, see what they're wondering, ask what questions there are, and just see if you guys can come to some ideas about like what is really going on in the world and what their safety and risk level is, because right now the risk level for kids is quite low. Even if they're getting it, some kids are asymptomatic and some kids are able to be fine at home. I've got a few clients that have friends who are ill with the COVID-19 virus, and they're just, you know, they feel really sick. They feel like it's the flu, but they're at home, so they're not in the hospital. And, you know, for other people, it may be worse than that. And the older generation, it's not as safe. But we just want to make sure that we're being honest with kids about what's going on. Some of this obviously is going to cause trauma for kids if they feel like they're getting too much information. I always define trauma as it's anything that you don't have the resilience or the coping skills to handle in the moment. So for children, they may at some point have coping skills to handle something, or an adult would handle something obviously much better than a child would for the most part. But two people can experience the exact same event, and one can be traumatized and one cannot. So it just depends on what their skills and resiliency is. So when you are being traumatized, when a child's being traumatized, this can happen to adults as well. There's not any brain growth happening. So we oftentimes see children who are victims of abuse like don't learn well in school. They're very distracted. They aren't retaining information because when you're traumatized, you're getting a really high level of cortisol to the brain, and that slows down and stops brain growth. So I just want to talk to you guys some about that brain growth, what can help it grow, what are some good chemicals to help fight off that cortisol with your kiddos and even with yourself. Some of this stuff is helpful for everybody. If we want to facilitate brain growth, some of the main things that we need to kind of help get that brain squishy again are creativity, novelty, so anything that's new, and laughter actually fights anxiety really well as well. very hard to like stay in an anxious place when you're genuinely happy and laughing. So as far as brain chemistry goes, with those things with trauma and stress versus like trying to help your brain grow, if you're getting that high level of cortisol and you want some relief, like anything that gets liquid out of your body actually helps relieve cortisol. So if you are stressed and you're crying, if you go for a jog and you sweat really hard, that all releases cortisol from your brain while you do that. Another good way actually is gardening. Like you wouldn't think it is. There's actually it's not super new, but gardening therapy is a new way to like help kids who've been severely traumatized or who have like ongoing chronic trauma in their life. Gardening can actually help, like getting your hands in the dirt and feeling productive and growing something. Deep breathing helps. We do a lot of like blowing bubbles with kids, like taking a really deep breath in, blowing as many bubbles as you can, or then taking a really deep breath in and trying to make the biggest bubble that you can blow. For teenagers, you can sometimes play like minute to win it games. Like we'll have a straw and a cotton ball, and you just try to take a really deep breath and you blow like the cotton ball as far as you can, and you're like racing somebody else. So those are more like teenagery things that you can do to kind of release some of that cortisol and get those deep breaths. Anybody who sings or does choir, a lot of your kiddos are going to know how to do diaphragm breathing, and that's just the muscle that's at the base of your lungs. And if you know how to breathe deeply, it actually that muscle will pull your lungs downward instead of getting your chest up. It opens up your stomach, and you can get really deep breaths that way as well, which can help release that cortisol. And then just really simple things like having a healthy diet, getting enough vitamin D, which is just you get enough vitamin D if you're outside in the sun for 20 minutes a day. If you don't think that's feasible right now, I always tell parents to get a supplement, because sometimes like when kids are in school, they're not going to be in the sunshine enough. But vitamin D actually will help release some of that cortisol too. So we want to get rid of cortisol. And then we want to increase the dopamine and oxytocin that are in your brain and in your children's brain. So for dopamine, that's anything that like is going to make you feel really good. So I always tell kids, first of all, you got to tell your parents that chocolate is something that releases dopamine. And they're always like, great. So just a little bit of dark chocolate. They don't need to go crazy. They don't need to make themselves sick. But a little bit of dark chocolate actually releases dopamine in the brain. Chocolate cake, chocolate ice cream, if they like those kinds of things, will release that dopamine. Exercising for anywhere from like 20 to 30 minutes, they say is as good as taking a Prozac because it releases so many endorphins and dopamine in your brain. Prayer is actually really good and releases dopamine because you are releasing some of that stress and anger and actually like giving up some of that control to God. So I always say that like prayer is a really good way. Kids a lot of times will get nervous about praying, or if we're like, oh, we're gonna pray for a little while, we're just gonna pray, and then when we're done, Cody will close us, or mom will end. Let's just pray for a while. Kids always get kind of nervous about that, but I think it's a really good way to just show that you can just like open your heart and just like be in the presence of God for a little bit while. Like even if they're not saying anything, like you just pray for a little while. Give them that space to like be able to pray and say some of the things that they're wondering or curious about or concerned about, and like give that up to God. I just remember as a kid, like my dad making us do that and being like so annoyed and not wanting to do it at all. And then like once we did it, I remember feeling like so much better and feeling like I learned to pray a lot better by just being able to do it with my family and with like my youth group and my friends. And some other things that release dopamine, getting a massage. I know you can't go get a massage right now, darn, but you can give your kids a massage like anytime that they're like going to bed, like just rubbing their back, or actually like sitting them in front of you and like massaging their shoulders. Sometimes with little kids, we'll get lotion and like just putting that lotion on your little kiddos like helps them feel that same kind of like massage and pressure, and just that contact with you increases that dopamine. Healthy sleep actually increases dopamine too, as long as you're getting like the good stages of sleep and you're cycling several times. I'm finding, I know it was just spring break, and so a lot of parents kind of let their kids do whatever for these 2 weeks, so the kids are super off their sleep schedule. So really trying to get them back into a normal, healthy sleep schedule. They're going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time, and they've got some structure during their day that's going to make it easy for them to go back to sleep at a normal hour. Again, some foods that help with dopamine release. Now we mentioned chocolate. Almonds actually help release dopamine. bananas, avocados, eggs, beans, fish, and chicken. If you want like a more comprehensive list, you can just Google foods that release dopamine, and you can get a good strong list. And just some things to like work into your diet. Like I know it's a lot easier to be cooking at home right now since everybody's home, so trying to work those things in for like breakfast and lunch and snacks, and making sure that kids are eating relatively healthy. I know I just ate like 2 nutty bars, so that's chocolate, right? And the other chemical that we really want to increase during this time when we're having a lot of this stress is oxytocin. And oxytocin is actually the bonding chemical. So married couples or couples who've been together for a long time tend to have this very strongly in their brains. So what we want to do to get oxytocin up is, especially with kiddos, you want to hug or snuggle your kid for anywhere from 20 to 30 seconds to 5 minutes. And I know that seems like a long time, or like if you think you're going to hug your spouse for 5 minutes, like that feels like a long time. But if you do it for up to 5 minutes, you actually get like the maximum oxytocin. And oxytocin will also wrap itself around serotonin, because when you get too much serotonin in your brain, it tends to like start to shut down certain synapses. So like that oxytocin just really helps bond you to other people and keeps those brain chemicals regulated. Some other things, if you are staying at home by yourself, if you have like a pet, petting a dog or a cat will help release some of that oxytocin too, especially if you're already bonded to that animal. I don't know the research on if you have like another kind of pet, like a bird or a snake or something, but really anything like that that you love, that you can have physical contact with, helps release some of that oxytocin. Having a full, like, deep conversation with someone can help give you that oxytocin. And know it's hard just doing the virtual conversations right now, but really giving yourself, like, mindfully to that conversation, that you're focused and you're not looking at other screens or the TV is not on. You really want to have that, like, focused time and communication with a friend or with your spouse or with your kiddo, and just give them that full attention. That helps build that oxytocin too, because you're bonding. Another good one, and this is for kids and adults, a hot bath, especially if you have little kiddos, like if you're like cleaning them and like playing with them, like that's a good bonding experience. And then the hot bath actually helps soothe them. So you want to do some kind of play. I'm in the tub with them. I know that it's harder to do with older kids, but just making sure that they're taking a shower every day. I know some people are going like days and days where it's, like if they're feeling really down or they're feeling really anxious, they're not remembering to take a bath, they're not remembering to brush their teeth, they're not brushing their hair or putting on fresh clothes. So making sure that that's part of that structure too, that you're getting a good shower or bath at least every other day, if not once a day. So that's kind of the brain chemistry side of this. So if you can be increasing that dopamine and oxytocin during this time, that will help reduce the cortisol and help bring that stress level and anxiety down, both for yourself and your children. Some other things that I have found to be helpful just in talking to my clients is like it's really helpful right now to set goals. I've been telling everybody, like, you may never have this much time to yourself again until you're retired. Do something with it, like things that you might never think that you would do, or, hobbies that you've never picked up before, or that language that you've always wanted to learn. Like, now is the time to do that, because that novelty also helps with that brain growth and helps you not feel so stagnant. So setting goals, even for yourself and for your kids, like we want to make sure that they're getting exercise every day. If you need to do some spring cleaning, like now's the time. I've been telling everybody to watch Marie Kondo's Tidying Up. I don't know if I can say that on here. They might make us take it down. But it's so helpful. Like, you learn so much, and it just kind of helps you not feel so overwhelmed with the cleaning up process, and kind of get kids on board as well. We want to have kids be like creating anything, like any kind of creativity, whether it's art or music, or even like I've got some kids that are like learning a new skateboard technique, or they're just jogging more. I've got one kid that's doing couch to 5K, so they're increasing like how much they're doing every day to try to like just get out and do something. I know I think you guys did the education piece last week. Like, it is still important that kids are learning. I know that a lot of schools are kind of saying, well, every grades were at third quarter. You can't get lower than that. So if your kid had all A's at quarter, like none of the schoolwork that they do is going to have a grade to it. But it is still important that their little brains are learning, even high schoolers. Like, it's important that they're getting some kind of intake. Like, that helps with brain growth instead of just sitting on, YouTube or video games all day. We want to make sure they're learning something and reading books. And this is kind of a rule of thumb when I'm talking to parents, but you don't want your kids to have more than 2 hours a day of screen time, which absolutely is not happening right now, especially with schoolwork and then spending time with friends. If there's someone that they're talking to, it's a little bit better, but like kids who are on YouTube for, extended periods of time or binging YouTube or playing video games for an extended period of time, there's actually research showing that will eventually make your brain function in the same way as like a drug addict's brain, because you get so addicted to that screen time when you stop learning how to make eye contact and having good social cues. So as much as you guys can, I know it's hard to set structure with everything that's going on, but just trying to make sure that like a lot of other things are completed before we're letting kiddos have, or even teenagers have, screen time. For a good rule of thumb is like, is all your schoolwork done? Have you done something creative? Have you had lunch? Have you had a shower? Have you done something outside? And then kind of towards the end of the day, if all of those things have been completed, then it's okay to do some screen time, other than, time with friends or schoolwork. That it's going to be hard to do right now, but limiting that like screen time that they're just alone doing whatever they want without any kind of impulse control, it needs to be limited right now as much as possible. I know I keep counting this, but set structure. So many parents are just struggling, right? Because you are trying to work and you're trying to homeschool your kids. You're trying to deal with all the stress of this and make sure that everybody has everything that they need. So even if you just set some structure around like, this is what time we wake up, this is what time we have breakfast and lunch and dinner, in the meantime, you guys need to get X, Y, Z done. Just trying to set some of that structure is going to help kids feel a little less chaotic. It'll help you parents feel less chaotic too. If you have little kiddos, it's good to, like, if you're doing some of the homeschooling, like, I know the expectations aren't super high as far as what they have to get done during the day, but taking a break, every hour and a half to 2 hours, give them, 5 minutes to run around outside or go get some water and a snack, and that really helps break up the day so that they can get their schoolwork done. I know it sounds crazy, but a lot of parents are struggling with that, so just try to set some loose structure. Don't kill yourself, but it's going to make everybody's lives easier if you have some structure to this. So things that will help with just the fear that's going on is just having some positive thoughts, whether that's like some scriptures that you guys are memorizing together, or even we have one of those like letter boards. So I've got like my verse that I was doing for Lent is still up there, but if you want to like do a different verse, and having some people do like a different verse every week, or even just saying to yourself like, this is temporary. Like a lot of people are feeling very overwhelmed, and when you feel overwhelmed, it does seem to be huge and bigger than what you can handle, and trying to remember that this is not going to last forever and that it's temporary. And especially when kids feel really overwhelmed, like just kind of giving them that language to say. And they'll say it back to you too. Like if they see you getting overwhelmed, they'll be like, Mom, this is temporary. So finding something as a family that's kind of, the positive thing that you want to say to each other right now is helpful. Some other good things for kids right now, FaceTime and virtual hangouts are going really well for the most part. I'm going to be interested to see at the end of this what our relationships are like, but I think we're doing the best that we can for right now. I'm also having some kids doing like driveway hangouts, so like they go to the base of one of their friends' driveways and their friend comes out, and they can just kind of hang out, give in at least 6 feet, just to see those friends. I know some kids are doing like art projects, or making cookies and treats, or donuts or something like that, just to like still feel connected to other people, because being alone like this isn't healthy for anybody. So trying to make sure they still have some of those outlets, and still being safe, like making sure that we're not going to people who are at higher risk, or if we are, that we're keeping a good distance. This is a really good time to connect with like family members, like grandparents, aunts and uncles, like anybody that you don't get to talk to as much. Maybe just reach out, have a conversation, try to connect. A lot of people are feeling really lonely and overwhelmed right now. So I think I've seen a lot of people find the benefit of just not being alone in this, and being able to help somebody else really seems to help them. So trying to find some of those things for your kids to do as well. I've talked to some people, if you're not a journaler, journaling is actually really helpful as far as like bringing all your thoughts down and organizing them. So if you are feeling really overwhelmed, journaling or bullet journaling is good. A lot of people don't like to write, so I've suggested art journaling. If you have like an old baby book, you can paint the whole thing white, and then each day you just like paint something or draw something or use crayons to like just paint or draw how you're feeling that day. Or I have some clients that are they have like a bunch of different papers or canvases, and so each day they're just doing one piece of art. So you pick colors based on your feelings. So if I am anxious, like to me those colors are like yellow and green, and then I'm kind of hopeful, like that color might be like a dark foresty green. So you want to just kind of like identify your feelings and put color to them, and then create a piece based on what feelings you're having that day. And then some people are putting them up like calendar style on their walls. Some people are a little bit more private. They don't want to have, their personal feelings and reflections out for the whole world to see, which is fine. So just trying to like document kind of along the way. And I know we talked at church a couple weeks ago about prayer journaling. This can be something that you can just add to that, like noticing how you're feeling that day, prayers that you have for like your friends, and just fears that you have that you're bringing to God. I think it'll be really interesting to be able to reflect back and just see like how he has shaped this time. And so just finding some ways to kind of document your feelings and your kids' feelings throughout this. The only other thing that I have, and then I'll throw it back to you, Cody and Kristen. I'm sorry if this is going really long as it is, sorry. Just some supplements that you can take that help with anxiety. I'll kind of list them off really quickly. Vitamin B and D are both really helpful. CoQ10, your omega-3s and 6s, that fish oil, or if you don't like fish oil, you can do flaxseed oil. Those really help your brain function better. So if you lean kind of towards depression and anxiety, I always suggest fish oil for people. And then zinc and selenium also just kind of help your brain function at a better level if you're noticing that you're tending towards some anxiety and depression. And then just in general, like this is super loose for me too, but like try to avoid sugar, dairy, and gluten. Those things tend to be inflammatory and can make you feel worse. But if you need to have a donut, man. Like it's okay. Just don't have one for every meal every day. So those are kind of the suggestions that I have. If you guys have any questions, you're welcome to email me at katehanloncounseling@gmail.com, or you're welcome to tell like Cody or Kristen. I guess you can tell Erin too. She's helpful. And just let them know what you guys need, or if there's any other questions that you have that I can answer. And I'll be
releasing dopamine right here.
Oh, good. I was just chocolate. Excellent. Did we get any questions, guys? Or any questions that you guys have? I know I went kind of long.
That's okay. It was good stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
We just thought we'll finish off with a couple questions, and then we'll just wrap it up. But one question I had is, how do we listen well? Like let's say our kids are struggling with something. I know that as parents, one of the best things that we can do is just be able to listen well. And I know that our time is busy, and so a lot of times we have about 100 things going on in our brain. What's a couple things you could tell us to just be good at listening?
Sure. So the first thing that I tell parents is whatever your kid says, like don't freak out, which I know is like super hard to do. But if a kid is bringing their anxiety to you, like a lot of times they've already been thinking about it for a really long time. Some kids are way more open, but for the most part, like by the time a kid brings it to a parent, like they're feeling pretty bad. So make sure that if you're noticing that your child is starting to be really upset or they're crying, or like I'm noticing that teenagers are kind of like separating themselves, like they're not coming out of their rooms, or they're getting angry really quickly for no reason. Like just make some space and talk to them. Younger children especially tend to do that at night, like when you're putting them down for bed, and that's actually when anxiety is worse for a lot of people anyway, because you're able to distract yourself across the day really well, and then nighttime is often really hard for people with anxiety, or even who don't have anxiety but are just stressed out right now with all this stuff. So making space at bedtime to just check in with your kids. Teenagers may do that too. Sometimes teenagers, you'll see it when they kind of flip out or they're being really disrespectful. Like don't take that as they're just being rude, but that they might be feeling some stress or anxiety that they need to talk it out. So that doesn't answer your question. How to listen well. I always tell parents, like, don't immediately give advice. Like, let your child just kind of talk for a while and just repeat what they say, because that's really validating. Even if you don't agree, just because you're validating a feeling doesn't mean that you're okay with it. So if they're like screaming at you and they're really mad, or if a teenager is being really disrespectful, maybe they cuss, like try to stay calm, And just be like, hey, like, I get that you're really mad right now, or hey, you seem really stressed right now. Like, let's take a break. Like, do you need to go to your room and chill for a second? Or hey, do you need to sit with mommy and get a hug? Just asking those kind of questions and making sure you like take a minute. And just for yourself too, I know like as a mom, like I can kind of like lose my mind sometimes. So then like tag team out with your partner, tag team out with a family member if you can, and just get a break until you're in a place that you're ready to listen.
Only other question I had was, what are signs parents can look for when it is time to talk about fear and anxiety? Like, is there anything that you can see as indicators that, okay, my kid's really struggling, I need to kind of help them out?
Yeah, so for littler kids, you're going to see like tantruming. You're going to see that if they're like tired too, but if it feels like, hey, like they're rested, they're not hungry, they're really freaking out, that would be a good time just to kind of like, hey, buddy, like, how are you feeling? Like, are you feeling scared? A lot of times kids, like, unless they have a really high emotional intelligence, like you need to name the feeling for them. So watching your child and just trying to notice what you see, because they'll correct you if they don't feel like that. If you're like, hey, buddy, like, you seem really scared. Are you scared? And they'll be like, yes, mommy. Or if they're not, you know, if they're like, I just want the transformer, like, they'll just say that, you know. So, like, trying to notice that stuff. Like I said before, with teenagers, you might see a lot of disrespect. You might see like kind of reclusing to their room, which teenagers can do anyway. But right now, I'm really encouraging parents, like, make your kids get out of their room, like make them come down and have some family time. They're already so isolated without being in school that like it's gonna be really important to make sure that they're not just up there 24/7. And feel like you can set structure. I know some parents get nervous if they feel like their child is anxious or depressed, because it's almost like the fear of asking the question keep parents from asking. But like, it's so important just to ask, because like worst case scenario is like all of a sudden it's something really, really big, or like it's making some choices that aren't safe. Like, you need that information. And if it gets really bad and you feel like you don't know what to do, or you just need some help, that's when it's good to seek professional help and just ask some questions and see if you're, you know, if you're in the wrong headspace, or if your kid's in the wrong headspace, and just what you can do about it.
Well, thank you, Kate. You're amazing at what you do. And I'm so glad that God put you in the position that you're at, and he's definitely using you. So thank you for all of that, for ministering in your way to the people that you do, which is awesome. Hey, next week we're going to have, it's going to be a little different. Lori Montague is going to be on. We're going to be doing a virtual Seder. So that'll be on, So it'll be, it'll be on Thursday night next week, which is actually when our church was looking at doing it anyway. So we'll do a virtual Seder. We're going to do it, and we'll try to maybe send out some stuff to you this week on stuff that maybe you can have at your home, and you can just participate with us on a Seder. So love to have you. That's 8 o'clock next week, and we'll see you all then.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.